Now let's take a closer look at the local markets. Earlier I spoke to Martin Lakos from Macquarie Private Wealth. Martin Lakos, the finance and resource sectors have led a decent rally, but how convincing has it been?
Tiki, good evening. Well, we certainly had a solid day today with the market maintaining most of its gains and in fact closed on its high. We had pretty good news out of Europe on the markets and also out of the US following some positive corporate results. The convincing of investors at the moment is such that the conviction of the sell down that we've seen in the last couple of weeks was on very low volume, and equally so the recovery so far has been on relatively low volumes. So although there may be some uncertainties easing investors' minds, they're not absolutely buying into it in terms of seeing commitments to the market at this stage. But a pretty solid day, driven by the banks largely. They're up 2.3%, and in fact the banks have now bounced 7.5% since the market achieved its lows on the 5th of July.
Now, these consumer confidence figures were certainly notable for economists. How have they played on the share market?
Yeah, look, it was actually a surprise number, and in fact it was very much a broad-based survey, being quite positive. It does appear that consumers were a little bit more heartened by the resolution of the leadership contest, the resolution or the compromise in regards to the resources tax, but probably the big issue is more about employment and security of their job, and that means they're prepared to probably spend a bit more on the household side. So the survey certainly showed up a greater preparedness to buy a large household item, as well as possibly even looking at a new dwelling. So that's very positive, but we've got to put in perspective, these are 1 month numbers. They do tend to be volatile, and investors, although look at the trend, probably would not be reacting to a 1 month set of numbers.
Of course, we've had budget figures recast somewhat today. To what extent are investors starting to position themselves ahead of a federal election campaign?
Well, as I mentioned, there's been a number of uncertainties in investors' minds that have really been part and parcel of the market coming off through the month of July, and no doubt they've been well repeated in terms of China growth slowdown, the Eurozone issues, the US potentially in terms of its ability to continue on its recovery path, and obviously domestic issues in regards to the budget process, but more importantly in regards to the election. And I think the big factor now for investors, domestic investors, is one, waiting for a date to be set, and two, what's the result. And in that, while those two unknowns are out there, investors will continue to sit on their hands.
And finally, an announcement from Qantas on an order for the Dreamliner aircraft. What were the details there?
Yeah, these orders had been put on hold, possibly out as far as 2013. They've been brought forward to 2012. This is for the 787-8 series. It's a very flexible aircraft in terms of Qantas being able to use it both for its main operations and Jetstar, notably Jetstar International. So they'll be able to swap between the two in regards to the configuration. It's very good also for the airline because it can start to retire some of its 20-year-old 767-300 fleet, and will also be very cost effective for the airline. So all good news, and probably brought forward a little bit earlier than had been anticipated even some 6 months ago. The next series of aircraft Qantas will look to bring in will be that 787-9 series, but that's a little way off from here. The stock was up a couple of cents to $2.32 with the general improving market.
Martin Lakos, thanks for talking to Late Line Business.
Always a pleasure.